Good to go. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Phil Grant, and I am head of the Institutions Unit at the Irish Permanent Representation to the EU here in Brussels. I'm delighted to welcome you all today. This is the 16th in our series of webinars focused on EU careers, and they can be watched back anytime on the Department of Foreign Affairs YouTube channel. So if you want to get information about previous such competitions or questions to other issues, you may find it there. We're here today because on the 5th of October, the European Personnel Selection Office launched the recruitment process for experienced administrators in the field of transport. For those of you who know the Brussels grading system, that's an AD7 position. And the deadline to apply is the 7th of November. And what we hope to do today is provide you with some more information on this specific competition. And we're also being joined by Koen Hendricks, who's from EPSO, who will walk us through the process in particular. And then Sarah Lynch, an Irish colleague here who works in this area in the EU Commission. As many of you may know, if you've joined us before, the Department of Foreign Affairs runs a particular program now designed to try and help and promote EU careers to Irish nationals. And we also provide a series of supports as well for people who are going into those competitions. And again, we encourage you to check out our website or contact us here in the rep if you want more details of that. It's eujobs@dfa.ie is the best contact point, and it's eujobs@dfa.ie. As I said, we're joined by Sarah Lynch from DG Move in the European Commission and by Koen Hendricks from the European Personnel Selection Office. We might start off with Koen, just invite you to give a general introduction to the competition and to the process.
Okay, very well. Thanks a lot, Phil, and welcome everybody. I'm happy to talk you through the selection procedure as such indeed. So what I'm about to say, you can also find what I call this tutorial in a way. You can find this tutorial on our website, the EPSO website. If you search for EU careers, if you land on our website on the home page, you'll find a direct link to apply to this competition. And on the next page, you will find the tutorial of what I'm going to say right now. I will share my screen and show you a PowerPoint presentation, which I'm launching right now. There you go. So as said, this time we are publishing a competition, or we have published a competition to select specialists in the field of transport. We always publish what we call this infographic on our website, showing you the 5 steps to take in order to become a successful candidate. And in the next couple of minutes, I will walk you through these 5 steps and explain in detail what they entail. So as said, it's an AD7 grade competition, meaning you need a degree and experience. So it's quite detailedly explained, as you can already see on this slide here. To be eligible, you either need a 4-year university degree, say a master, in one of these fields mentioned. So law, economics, engineering, transport, logistics, or political science. And this list is exhaustive, so it must be one of these 6. If you have such a master, you need an additional 6 years of professional experience in the field. I'll come back to that in a minute. If you do not have a master, but only a bachelor, which means a 3-year degree in one of these same 6 fields, then you would need an extra 7 years at least of relevant experience. Then the last option is that you have a bachelor or a master in another degree than the ones I mentioned, but then you need 9 years of experience in the field. Now, and this is important, this professional experience must be acquired in a certain area and in a certain activity. Now, in the notice of competition, which is the legal document explaining the whole competition, you find this notice of competition on the EPSO website, of course. There we explain what these areas can be and what these activities can be. I'll give you a couple of examples only because it's 2 pages long. Areas such as transport safety, trans-European networks, transport engineering, transport research and economics, to give you an example. And then activities such as developing policy, evaluating existing policies, scientific analysis, managing budgetary aspects, these things. I mean, what I said was not exhaustive, so there's really a long list of areas and activities, and you must meet both an area and an activity for your professional experience to be eligible. Apart from the degree and experience, you also need to meet a language criterion. You always need to speak or master 2 EU languages, one at minimum C1 level, one at minimum B2 level, and one of both must be English. So for most of you, well, anyway, I don't know if all of you speak Irish, but it would be Irish and English or any other language and English, okay? You do not have to prove your language knowledge with any certificates. Just by sitting the tests, I'll speak about in a minute, just by sitting the tests in these languages and by succeeding them, of course, you prove your language knowledge, which is then enough for us to be able to hire you in the end. The selection procedure has a typical schematic, if you like. It all starts with an application phase, of course. Then there is a testing phase, and after which we communicate the results. I'll speak about all these 3 stages in a minute in detail. Important to know is that all testing happens remotely. So you do not need to travel to a test center. You basically sit these tests from your home computer in one single day. So consequently, you will sit the 3 tests: reasoning skills, field-related test, and the case study. Good to know also is that we do not communicate intermediate results of these tests. So everybody who applies will be invited to this single testing day. And during this testing day, everybody will sit and take all 3 tests. Okay, so you don't know in between whether you score well or not. Only at the very end, you will receive your results overall. So in detail, first the application phase. You need an EPSO account to apply to any of our selection procedures, basically. If you have already an account, use that one. You cannot create a second one. And if you don't, you just create one easily on our website. You apply through the homepage, as I've just explained, and you can apply in any of the 24 official languages. You should validate your application by the 7th of November, as Phil already said. So until then, you can go in and out of your application and modify it if you like, but you must validate it, of course, in time. As said, once you have applied, and everybody who applies gets invited to this testing day. So we do not do an eligibility check up front. Everybody who applies gets tested, and we test 3 things. Firstly, we test your reasoning skills, verbal, numerical, and abstract reasoning in the other language than English. Okay, the other language than English. You see the number of questions to be solved, the duration you get, and the scoring. This reasoning skills test is a pass-fail test, meaning you need to reach just the pass score. For verbal reasoning, this is 10 out of 20. So whether you have 10 out of 20 or more, doesn't matter. You need to reach at least 10. And then there's a combined pass score for numerical and abstract reasoning. Again, 10 out of 20, so combined at this time. Please go have a look on our sample test page. On the EPSO homepage, you will find sample tests, and there you will find examples in all languages available where you can train this. And I really suggest you do this because then you get to know the level of difficulty of these tests. Also, there's this time factor involved, so you need to be able to solve these questions under time pressure in a way. And by training this, of course, you get better at this and you will score better. The second test is what we call a field-related test. So in the field of transport, of course, this time. You sit this test in English, 30 questions in 40 minutes. Now, this time your score will be ranked. So just reaching the pass score of 20 out of 30 will very probably not be enough to be among the best. Okay, your scores will be ranked, and only the highest ranked, of course, will then be listed on the list of successful candidates. The third and last test is a case study. Again, you can take it in any of the 24 languages, up to you to choose. A 45-minute test on 10 points. And again, this is a pass-fail test. So you just need to meet the threshold, which is 5 out of 10. We do not test knowledge in the field through this case study. We test your drafting skills, your written communication. Okay, so this is important to know. And again, you will find sample tests on the website to have a look at what a mock test would look like as a case study. So the best ranked after the second test here, and the ones who pass the case study and the reasoning skills test, those are the ones that will be listed on the reserve list. And this is then the list we hand over to the institutions. We, EPSO, we hand over this list to the institutions. And when they have vacancies, they will then recruit these people. How does this work? We, EPSO, we make a list of 80 successful candidates. And then when an institution has a vacancy to fill, basically they will look at the CVs of the people on this list. There's not really an order. There's not a top number 1 candidate and a bottom number 80. Everybody in a way is equal, but of course, based on your degree and experience, we try and match the people on the list with the vacancies. So when an institution needs to fill a post, they will invite 3, 4, 5 people to a job interview, and then the best match gets offered the job. The others stay on the list, and throughout the year, because there is an initial validity of this reserve list for a year, during the year, we try and recruit everybody. If it happens that after 1 year, we still have people on the list, we will then extend the validity of that list, of course, to give the opportunity to both the institutions to recruit staff and to, of course, offer the people on the list to be able to start working with us. So this is in a nutshell what I want to share with you. Again, I can't stress enough, please do read the notice of competition very carefully. It will answer many of your questions. If you still have questions left, of course, reach out to us. On the website, you will find a web form, so you can easily reach us through that. You will also find frequently asked questions there, which can definitely be of help. Also follow us on social media. We keep you updated on this competition and other opportunities in the future. I'm very happy to take questions, but I guess we will first hand over the floor to Sarah now, who will share really the work of a person in the field of transportation. Sarah?
Yeah, thanks. Just before we hand over to Sarah, you mentioned questions. You have an opportunity if you want people to ask us questions here through the Slido platform. If you go to this webpage, sli.do, so sli.do, and use the code EUJobs, you'll be able to access the system. You don't have to register, and we'll be checking the Slido as we do the presentation, and then coming back to our 2 speakers with any questions that you may have for them. And there normally are quite a few after Koen's presentation, as we know from previous such webinars. Before I pass to Sarah, just to mention something about transport policy in the EU. I mean, this is one of the oldest common policies of the EU. Its roots date back all the way to the Treaty of Rome, but it's become a particularly key area at the moment. Transport is one of those cross-cutting sectoral issues. It affects issues such as the digital economy, the green transition, the EU's climate goals. So it's a particularly interesting area of work and responsibility at the moment in the EU institutions. One of the institutions I cover is Parliament. Parliament has a committee, the Trans Committee, which primarily focuses on transport issues. And that's a good place to go looking for information about current topics, legislative processes, but also they have a lot of good background documentation. So on that note, Sarah, if you'd like to take it away from us, thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks, Philip, and thanks, Koen, and good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Sarah Lynch. I'm from Duleek in County Meath. I have been working in the road safety unit within DG Moves, so the transport department in the European Commission, for the last 3 years or so. I've actually moved several times within the Commission. This is, I think, one of the very interesting things about working for the Commission is that you can move to different policy areas and learn about different policy areas. But of course, I'll focus on transport for this one. Just to give you a bit of background, I'm not any one of the degrees that is mentioned in the notice of competition. I'm in the other category. I'm from the arts. I was a languages student. I studied German and English at Trinity College Dublin. I then worked in the private sector for a fair number of years, first in the food sector and then in the financial services sector. And through having worked in the financial sector, I came in to the Commission in 2004, initially working on financial services legislation, and that's where I stayed for about another 12 years. In the meantime, I had settled in Belgium. I had married a Belgian. I had had 2 children. So I was fairly established here in Brussels. After a while of dealing with financial services legislation, I wanted to deal with something that had a bit more of a human face. So I went to education, and I managed the Erasmus program for a while. And 3 years ago, again, I decided, again, on an issue that I think is very relevant to all of us in our daily lives, to work on transport. And here in DG Move, I work in the road safety team. It's quite a small unit of people. We work on various issues, legislative and non-legislative, to do with keeping our roads safe. There's a mixed competence here. So some things are under the authority of the member states or even local authorities. Some things the EU has powers for. I'm not working on legislative files at the moment. Some of my colleagues are, for instance, on things to do with driving licenses, on the regular inspections of your vehicles, on the cross-border enforcement of road traffic rules. So if you get a speeding fine in France, does it follow you home to Ireland? That sort of thing. One of the things I work on is urban road safety, and that's something that we don't have competence for at EU level, but we play a very important role in facilitating exchanges, outreach, exchange of best practice, that kind of thing. We organise a lot of events. We had a big event last week in Seville in Spain called the Urban Mobility Days, where you get, we had 800 people from all different sorts of cities, from authorities, from private companies coming together to see how best to improve the flow of transport and the safety of transport in our cities. That would come under the, I think there's a category there in the exam notice of outreach and coordination, or coordination and enforcement, something like that. I think that falls under that category. And the communication is not to be underestimated. I think one of the roles that the Commission can play is not only coming up with new rules and enforcing existing rules, but also in facilitating and being at the centre point of exchanges between member states that are doing well, the ones that are doing less well, and see how they can learn from each other. So that's also a project that I run. Speaking of projects, there's a mention in the competition notice about budgetary management. That doesn't have to be being an accountant or running budgets. Sometimes we are running external projects where we use contractors to fulfill certain tasks for us, and managing those contracts and running the budgets for those contracts is also part of our job. I think that's probably where I'll leave it for now. I just want to say, I think Irish people bring a lot to the table when it comes to working in the European institutions and DG Transport in particular. We have a fairly broad educational background. I think our 7-subject, 8-subject Leaving Cert is quite interesting on that front. And I think our educational system is very strong. I think a lot of Irish people are very pragmatic and have a good degree of common sense, and that's also very strongly sought after when dealing with tricky files. One of the files that DG Move is dealing with at the moment is getting the grain out of Ukraine. That's a very specific issue that is very top of the agenda, is the solidarity lanes. Everything from the geopolitics of that to the nitty-gritty of how do you actually get the trucks onto the road is a fascinating area to be working in. So I think it's a great area to go for. I encourage you all to join me. There's only 5 or 6 of us here in the DG from Ireland, and 2 of those are going to be retiring soon. So please come and join me. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd echo that. I mean, we're very keen to have more Irish across the institutions, and this is one of the opportunities whereby we can reach out to people like yourselves online and encourage you to apply. We have several questions in already. We might start with one specific one. Where would these people be recruited to? I mean, DG Move is the obvious one, but it could be a number of the other directorates where transport is a coordinating point, or indeed one or other of the institutions. And where might these jobs be in terms of geography?
Yeah, so people would work either in Brussels or Luxembourg, and indeed, as you say, not only in the Commission, but for instance, also in the Council. You know, every legislative act that we take, I mean, and I will speak as a Commission person, actually, the Commission will make the proposals for any legislation, and then the Council and the Parliament will go through that proposal and turn it into legislation. So in both the Council and the Parliament, you will have committees dealing on any topic you can think of, including transportation. So it's a domain which you find in across the big institutions, really, Commission and Council and Parliament. So there's many opportunities to work on this field in different institutions, really.
And in terms of salary scale, what is an AD7 on the salary scale? Yeah. And just to point out too, don't always think just in terms of the salary scale when it comes to positions in Brussels. There are lots of other factors that affect your salary or top up your salary.
Yeah. So the basic salary would be about 5,000 euros net, I think it would be. Then you have indeed a very good pension scheme. You have household allowances. You have an expat allowance. You have children's allowance, school allowances. So you have a good insurance package. You have European schools, so your children can be educated in their own language, both in Brussels or in Luxembourg, wherever you're based. So the whole benefits package, in a way, is quite generous. You are, in a way, well off when working here with us and when joining the EU institutions. So that should not withhold you from applying, for sure not.
Yeah. Sir, do you want to say anything on the interesting subject of salary scales and relative income compared to jobs back home?
Yeah, I think it can be seen as pretty generous. I would certainly have no complaints on that front. In terms of the locations, there are also a couple of different DGs within the Commission that deal with transportation issues. So the Joint Research Centre is a particularly a scientific institution that does some research, for instance, on crashes or on emissions. They have some people working on that. DG Grow, which is the enterprise department, it deals with the regulations around vehicles specifically. So it's not just DG Move that has areas to work on in the transport sector. There are several other areas where it comes in. Also, climate and environment. They also have policies that touch on transport, so they are also very, very relevant DGs.
Yeah, and particularly in regard to the latter, I mean, as this becomes a more important area of their work, one of the reasons we're seeing this competition is because there is that demand now for people with this expertise across various DGs and the institutions in general. A couple of specific questions in regard to the testing dates. How firm are the testing dates in December?
The testing dates?
Yeah.
So the competition application period closes on the 7th of November, which means that people will be invited to book a testing slot before Christmas, and very probably the testing themselves will be just after Christmas. Now, you will, of course, be notified about this through your EPSO account. Please check your account at least twice a week. You will get notifications if there's a new message in your EPSO account. Now, these notifications may not always arrive, so please make sure, be proactive in this case. And once you have applied, keep an eye on your account regularly to not miss these deadlines, of course, because these booking slots are limited in time. And then again, the testing dates also are limited in time. If I say that you as a candidate take your tests in one single day, it does not mean that all candidates will be tested on the same day. There will be, depending on the number of candidates, a number of days where we open up testing slots. You can then book a slot and then take your test from there.
Okay, and a couple of more questions in regard to the testing process. The multiple choice questions, can the candidates expect these to be EU policy focused primarily?
So first of all, for the reasoning skills, of course, the verbal reasoning skill will touch upon paragraphs having to do with EU matter. Not always. We also have questions totally not related to EU, so you have both of it. Then, of course, when it comes to the questions on the topic, clearly it's about the transportation. And then when it comes to case study, it will be an EU-related topic, but not specifically on transport. So it is always good to have a bit of a knowledge about the EU, of course. This may help you to process the information a bit quicker than someone else. So if you want to prepare in that sense, that would definitely make sense.
And in terms of the timing of the questions and the reasoning test, for example, is there a time set per question, or is it a general time in which you have to answer all of the questions?
Yeah, good question. It's an overall time. So if you solve a question a bit quicker than the next one, you keep the remaining time to solve the rest of the question. So your counter is not set to 0 after each question. So you keep your remaining time.
Thank you. Some questions in regard to level of speciality and areas of speciality, which I think we would anticipate in a competition such as this one. I mean, certainly nobody can be specialized in all areas of transport policy, but there are some specific questions in regard to, say, for example, someone who has IT experience, but in a logistics context.
So I'm really looking at my list now in the notes of competition. If I see something about IT, let me quickly glance here. Well, the area of connectivity, automation, digitalization, artificial intelligence in transport and intelligent transport systems. So that's definitely good. Let me see what else I have. Cybersecurity.
Another question, experience in transport insurance, for example, in the European Insurance and Occupational Pensions Authority.
Transport insurance, I'm looking, transport safety, urban mobility, transport investment, infrastructure, engineering, and energy, operational interoperability, harmonization, research and economics, labor law, social protection in transport. I don't see it immediately.
Could be in the economics part, no?
In the economics part, probably in the economics part, indeed. Now, if you have a doubt whether or not your degree is really, in the list of areas or activities, you can't ask us EPSO to judge on this, because in the end, it will be the selection board who, of course, takes the decision whether you are eligible or not. So in the cases you hesitate, I really suggest you to apply, because in the end, okay, you have to invest a bit of time and effort then to sit the competition, fair enough. But in the end, as I said, it's the selection board that decides whether or not you're really case by case, whether your criteria meet the required eligibility. So I really would suggest you then that you apply.
Can I just come in on that?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
From my personal experience back 19 years ago when I was doing the concours, my application ultimately after the first round was rejected because it was deemed that I didn't have the requisite experience. I appealed that, and I was accepted, and I got through. So I think it's really worth investing the time to show that your experience is relevant to the subject in question.
Yeah, I echo that. Certainly, if you can show your interest and your commitment to the topic, don't let that put you off applying. A related question to that, I mean, this is a higher level recruitment at AD7. But in terms of more general recruitment to jobs of this nature at starting positions, I mean, we will have the general concours, of course, in November, which will be one of those channels. Where are the other areas where people generally come into the institutions with background in this area from your experience?
So we really need all kinds of people. So as you say, the generalist competition is the entry-level competition open to anyone with at least a university bachelor degree. So basically anyone meeting that, having 2 languages and being an EU citizen can take part. And apart from this generalist competition, we run what we call specialist competitions year-round. And we need linguists, we need lawyers, we need this time specialists in transport, we need soon nuclear inspectors, we will need statisticians, we need web designers, accountants. I mean, you can think of anything really. And you can have a job with us. It really depends on what the needs are in the institutions. All the institutions, we have a constant dialogue between EPSO and the institutions. We look at what the needs are in the institutions, and if we come to an agreement, we publish a competition and we launch it and we put it up. So we really need all kinds.
Sir, you're in DG Move, so I presume you can see where people coming from. I mean, the nice thing about the institutions is there is a lot of flexibility when you come in here to move around different GGs, different areas of work, find those areas where you feel you enjoy the most and have the most to bring.
I mean, I can say a word about that if you like. I mean, Sarah, please go ahead first.
No, just to say that, yes, my colleagues are from a variety of backgrounds, some engineers, some economists, some lawyers, some political scientists, some linguists like myself, some, I can't think of really any chemistry, any statistics, any background you can think of, they are from. I think what unites us all is being able to speak a second language, and having an interest and a drive to contribute to the public good. I think that's really what the underlying message is for people working for the institutions.
Yeah, and as you've heard through Sarah's testimonial, this internal job mobility is really an asset. So, of course, when you get in, when you are successful in a competition, you get this job for life, but it doesn't mean you have to do the same job for life. I mean, it's quite easy to switch between services, between institutions, between cities even, and in this way make your own career. We also offer personal development courses, lifelong. You can enroll in language training, accountancy training, finance, soft skill trainings. There's a whole catalog of trainings available. You sign up, it's free of charge during working hours. And through this, you can really personally develop, professionally develop, and shape your own career in the years to come. It's quite nice, actually, to be employed under this EU umbrella and have the opportunity to move around to all these different services.
Thank you both. Mike, there's a question from somebody online regarding the particular supports which we provide through the Department of Foreign Affairs for such competitions. Do you want to just briefly touch on that and then give the contact points in particular for follow-up?
Yeah.
So I'm just asking my colleague Mike Williams, who coordinates the EU job support system here in the rep, to say a few words on that subject.
Yeah, okay. So essentially for these competitions, what we're looking to provide is access to online multiple choice based, I think it's because you're...
No, my
Is that? No?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think. Okay, so essentially for the computer-based tests, essentially we provide, so that's for the verbal, abstract, numerical reasoning tests. We'll provide access for Irish candidates to online practice questions through the private provider called EU Training. So if you contact us, I think it's DFA, it's eujobs@dfa.ie. We can provide access to that. And then additionally, we're also looking at organizing group training sessions for case study practice, essentially. So that's again with a private training provider to have Irish candidates to go through what's involved in the case study process, how to approach case studies, because that's obviously also a big component of these tests. For the specific expert tests, the expert knowledge test, essentially, we don't have specific training available at the moment for those. Those will obviously be the part where really your own experience and your own knowledge in terms of your career to date will come into it. But of course, as Philip has mentioned, there's good resources online in terms of understanding broader EU policy, in the area of transport, and legislative files that are going through at the moment. But from our side, and maybe unless Kuhn wants to add to this, we wouldn't have specific insight at the moment in terms of what will be tested on in this specific area.
Yeah, I can.
One thing which we can also do, if you're keen, is we can put you in contact with people like Sarah who actually are in these areas of work within the EU institutions. I mean, we're very reliant on our colleagues, and people like Sarah are very good at providing assistance and help and background information or contact points. So if you have particular questions around what to expect and things like that, I mean, again, just let us know and we'll try and get that information for you as well. We're getting a few more questions back on the multiple choice questions system, particularly that question again, to what extent is this going to be general theory? What extent is it going to be EU policy focused, or is it going to be a mix?
So the second test, where we test the knowledge in the field, is really a test to assess the knowledge in the field of transport. It's not general EU, we're not going to ask questions about what is the role of the different institutions, or what are the priorities of the Commission currently? No, it's really about the topic of transport. So it's really knowledge on the subject, really, on the subject of the specialty of this competition. So that's quite clear.
Yeah. I mean, there's a particular question which is interesting. You know, the question on modes of transport. I mean, there are many different modes of transport: shipping, rail, road. I mean, is it going to be that specific, or will it be more general in nature, touching upon all aspects?
That I don't know.
Hard question to answer. I'm sorry.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I would expect that the different modes would come into play here, but I can't say this for certain. I don't know. I'm not drawing up the questions.
When and how will the eligibility? Sorry, yes, sir.
I can make available to you some recent general overview documents from on EU transport policy, which would cover road, rail, waterways, aviation, and then the candidates can have a look at those.
Yeah. And again, I mean, the purpose of these multiple choice questions is not to trap people or make it difficult for people. It really is very much just to make sure that people who are coming forward to the next step in the process have a basic qualification standard that's already there. When and how will the eligibility check take place?
When and how? Sorry, Phil, can you repeat?
The eligibility check. At what stage does that come into?
The eligibility check is done after the testing phase. So how does this work? We first check who of all applicants has passed the reasoning skills test. Okay, so then of that batch, we then look at the score of the second test, of the test of the knowledge in the field, and we start checking the eligibility from the highest rank, the ones with the highest points. And we check the eligibility going down until we reach the number of 80, because we're looking to select 80 people in this competition. And from those 80, we will see if they have passed the case study. If not, we continue checking the eligibility of the next ones ranked, and that's how we put together the 80 people on the reserve list.
Thank you. Another question. This relates to if somebody is successful in the competition and taken on, is there a probation or a period of final assessment that someone is made permanent?
Yes, indeed. So usually the probation is 9 months. So the day you start working, there's a 9-month probation period, after which there's an assessment of your work, basically. And if that goes well, you can stay on. I must say I have never heard of anyone who, after this initial 9 months, has been sent home again. So usually this should work out.
Okay. And another specific question: if somebody is already a TA 87 working in Brussels and gets that role in this competition, do they want to change? Do they keep their current situation in regard to allowances, etc.? I suppose in particular the expatriation allowance.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Okay. We have no more questions coming in on Slido. I might ask Koen and Sarah just if they have any final thoughts that they want to provide us.
I just want to encourage you all that DigiMove anyway is a very open, very friendly environment in which to work. I mean, it's not a small consideration. It's a very good working environment, I think, with a fairly accessible hierarchical structure. And it's a great place to work, and I really hope that some of you will be successful. Will be coming to join us here soon.
Yeah, I can only agree. Working in an international environment is very enriching. It's fun. I worked prior also in Flemish, Belgian companies, which were very nice, but quite square and not very eye-opening. And I must say, working in an international environment is fun. You are surrounded with people from all over the EU, from different backgrounds, which makes it enriching and fun, as I said a couple of times already. As you can see, I'm having fun myself in my job with the people around me. And then this fact of being able to move around, not being stuck in one job for the next 20, 30 years, makes it, very appealing, actually. So I would only join Sarah in saying, please do apply. Again, if you apply and if you are not successful, this does not mean that you are not fit for a job with us. I mean, statistically, the chances of success are small because we attract many candidates. but many of my colleagues have tried multiple competitions before succeeding one. So it's just a matter of trying again. I mean, your prior results are not being held against you. There's no blacklist of people failing or so. You can take part as many times as you like in as many competitions as you want, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria, of course. So you could, for instance, take part in this one if you are eligible. And in a couple of weeks, when we publish the generalist competition, you can then also take part in that one. Why not? And double your chances in that way. So give it a go and prepare well, of course. That would be my advice.
I mean, there's a point made here, a good one, that for early careers, you know, the 10 universities in Ireland have EU career student ambassadors, and they're available to meet with students and graduates to discuss EU careers. So again, at an early stage. But this point, which everyone here has made, is that, you know, there are lots of different types of career here in the institutions. There's something that should suit everybody. And, you know, we are very much behind encouraging candidates to go forward, supporting those candidates who do go forward, and keeping those lines of communication and cross-linkage between Brussels and home as well, which is the other nice aspect for a job in this. You're not walking away from home. You're very much still going to be in contact and connecting with home. There are often a lot of questions following up on these webinars. So again, I'll just say, if there are any more, you can contact us specifically at eujobs@dfa.ie, and we can try and get back to you as soon as we can with any additional queries that you might have. We do hope that this webinar has offered encouragement to all of you, and we'd like to thank you for taking the interest in this 87 position, but more generally also. I want to say a special thanks to Kun, who always provides, you know, a very, very accessible insight into the recruitment process for these competitions. They're not always the simplest processes, but you always make them sound, you know, you're very, very good at explaining exactly what people need to be doing and where their focus needs to be. And a very sincere thank you to Sarah for sharing her experience of working in the Commission. If you would like to rewatch some of this webinar or share it with somebody you know, it will be available on the DFA YouTube account shortly. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time this afternoon, and all the best in the competition for those of you that are going to participate. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.